Hello, I'm John, Shopkeep Arty, and today we are going to be introducing a new artist to you. One of our passions at Shopkeep Arty is to try and find new and upcoming artists around the world. And today we are in for a treat. We are going to be showcasing Dani from Armenia. And Armenia is an incredibly amazingly situated place. It's on the border of hotspots like Iran and Turkey and places like that. So quite in the center of a lot of stuff that's going on in the world right now. But I can't wait to showcase Dani. If you want to follow along, please visit our website and you can see all the class materials on our video library. If you click the button class info on our video library, you'll find them all there. And later on, we'll have a look at some of Dani's previous artworks for a bit of inspiration, but more about that soon. Let's not waste any time and let's zoom to Dani now. So as we journey on down to Armenia, you can see it there in the center. We'll see where Dani lives. She's quite in the heart of the center, actually, and it looks quite amazing. It's got sort of a ring road. You'll see it coming into shot now, and we may be able to see Dani she's just running indoors now. We'll just quickly go to hi, Dani. How are you?
Hi, John.
Brilliant. Well, really great to see you. It's fantastic to be hosting you. And as I said, it's really great. This is the first time that you've done a live webinar on to the world. So that's really fantastic. And so I'm great to be able to showcase you. You do teach art in your art studio and everything, as I understand it, but this is the first time that you've done a webinar like this, and we're hoping that if people enjoy it today, that you'll want us to do an upcoming workshop with Dani at a later date, and we'll maybe explain all about that. But Armenia, first of all, Dani. So well, let's talk about art first of all, seeing as we're an art channel. So what inspired you about art? You sort of got into it with graphic design and things, didn't you, first of all?
Yeah, something like that. Well, first of all, let me thank you so much, John, for your kind invitation. I'm very happy to be here and excited to paint today. And to talk about how I started. First, I got into a retouching job, which is a Photoshop editor, post-production artist. And I worked with still images for magazines, and brands, clothing brands. And then after a while, I decided to take a break and kind of got into painting digital clip art. I was really excited about trying this thing. I had an iPad, so I just downloaded Procreate, started painting some clip art images, and I really enjoyed the look of watercolor clip art. And what I started with, I was trying to imitate watercolor clip art painting on my iPad, where you have to actually manually blend the colors. So after a while, I decided I should just go out and buy some paints and just try it for the first time. And it felt so amazing and so satisfying to watch the colors bleed into each other. So that's when I was hooked and I never looked back. Yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, you shared that story with me yesterday. And what I found amazing about this story is that it's sort of the other way round, as you would expect it. You'd sort of expect someone to be a watercolor artist and then maybe go digital, but you started digital and you've gone to the real watercolor. I guess because of the randomness that water can produce. You can't quite get that on an iPad or anything.
Yeah, exactly. The feeling is different. The process is so much more satisfying and the outcome is so much better when you paint with your hands, and it feels so much more important.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Right. Well, let me just explain to everybody how today will work. So first of all, we'll start off with a line drawing. It's going to be very simple. We're just doing a simple countryside scene. I think in Armenia, but we'll find out where the photo was. And then a first wash. And then while that dries, we'll take a bit of a break in the middle for us to have a little look at some of Dani's previous works of art. for a bit of inspiration, and also talk about how you can make a donation to thank Dani for her time today. But that donation actually goes towards a future workshop. So you'll get entry to a future longer workshop with Dani if we decide to hold one with her. Then the second half, we'll finish off with the other layers, and then at the end, all your comments or questions and thanking Dani, and we'll bring it to an end. And it should be about an hour in length. So hope you're ready. Hope you got your paper and paints and pencil ready. All the materials are on our site. And let's go back to Dani now. Back with you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to just show you some example paintings I've done. Painting this landscape. This was the first version. And that is the second version I did today, because I thought maybe I would better simplify it for a bit. So let's just talk quickly about what I'm trying to talk about today. First of all, if you look at the reference picture, if you have it in, somewhere near, you can see that I've altered the image a little bit, and I changed the composition, and it looks a lot different than the original reference image. So the first thing I want to talk today about is the fact that you don't always have to blindly follow the reference photo, and you can adjust it, and you can add some elements. So in this case, I decided that I wanted a village in the back, and that kind of made sense that you get this visual pathway towards the focal point of the painting. And also the mountains look a lot more established in this version. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. And first of all, I'm gonna talk real quick about the materials that I'm using. I'm painting on Bauholm cold press paper. It's 300 GSM cotton paper. Also, as for my brushes, I will use a large squirrel mop brush, a medium-sized squirrel mop brush, and then I've got these two brushes that are made of a mix of synthetic and natural hairs. And you can use a synthetic brush. It doesn't matter. It will perform the same way. It's just the tip of the brush should be really sharp to be able to paint some details and do some more detailed work. So as for the paints, I'm painting with Daniel Smith watercolor tube paints. And today I will be using just these colors: Hansa Yellow Light, Quinacridone Rose, Ultramarine Blue, this one, Cobalt Blue, Neutral Tint, that one, Sepia, and Quinacridone Gold. So also, I have a pencil to sketch with, a kneaded eraser, and I'm using a sponge to wet my paper, but you can use just a brush. It's also fine. So let's start with the sketch. Let me just first, what I always like to do is to suggest the horizon line, and I would put it at the bottom third of the painting, something like that. And let's decide on the focal point of the painting. I want a village in the left third of the painting. So I'm gonna just choose a place where I want my main house, the focal point, to be, and I'm just gonna draw in the house. Very simple shape, just the house with the roof. And then I want to create some random rectangular shapes that will suggest that it is a village and that there are a lot of shapes, houses, maybe some things going on, some action. So just lightly sketching some elements to complete the composition. And then I want the pathway to lead the viewer towards the house. So I'm gonna just make this diagonal line And now, if you look at the reference, we have a fence, and I want to put that in as well. So if we think about the perspective, the fence guidelines, let's call them that, will lead towards the house, and it will narrow as we move further away from the viewer into the distance. So I'm just painting this shape to create these guidelines to help me build this fence. So let's come right in and make some vertical strokes. Okay, that's done. And the last element of my composition is going to be the pathway that leads to the right of the image. That's basically almost it. The only thing I want to also add to this sketch is some guidelines for me to actually follow the perspective. So let's find the vanishing point. I've actually started from behind. I've drawn this line. So if I make this line go a bit further, somewhere around here, I will find a vanishing point that will help me create those guidelines following for the field in the foreground. Okay, so now we have a sense of depth and perspective in the sketch. And that's basically it. I'm not going to sketch in the trees or the mountains because these shapes are easily done with a brush, and actually I don't like the lines of the sketch afterwards. So now I can use the kneaded eraser to make these lines less visible, just a little bit, dabbing on my paper with the eraser. So this can be just the guidelines for me to come in with the paint. These ones I just need really light to understand the perspective as I'm painting. I know it's not really visible for you right now, but well, actually, some of the details look visible. Okay, now it's time to wet both sides of the paper because I'm working wet on wet today. And I'm starting by wetting the back of the paper. Again, I'll be using a sponge, but if you use a brush, it will work the same way. And I'm really soaking the paper in water because I want it to stay wet longer to allow me for slower painting process. And also I want it to stay flat on the surface. Now I'm going to take a paper towel and remove excess moisture from the board. And now, time to stick the paper to the board. Okay. Taking the sponge again and wetting the front side of my paper. I'm kind of pressing on my sponge because I want the paper to stick to the board really well. Okay, at this point, it's best to let it soak in for a couple of minutes. And while it's soaking in, I think it's best that we prepare some mixes in advance and talk about color paint consistency for a moment. So I'm going to use a spray bottle to activate my paint. And I will wet my brush and even put some clean water on the palette to get it ready for the mixing. I will start with the cloud shapes because the clouds are not completely white, and I usually use some sort of subtle color for the clouds. And since it's the lightest part of the sky, that's where I begin with. And I will use an interesting mix of sepia and neutral tint for that. Clouds are usually of a warmer color than the sky. They are usually gray or sometimes even warm gray if you look at the pictures. So you can see I have a super weak transparent mixture. And I can actually go in and test the mixture, whether it's good in terms of consistency. And I think I might add just a little bit to that. It might look a little bit strong to you, but trust the process. It's going to look great at the end. So I'm trying to follow the shapes of the clouds that I see on the reference image. They're very subtle in the reference image. Yeah, by the way, it's in Armenia, yeah. So I'm just...
yes, I was going to say, was it taken?
Yeah.
Did you take the photo yourself, or?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Ah, very good.
Yes, it's beautiful. Rural landscapes of Armenia are beautiful. So yeah, I will actually take that color down closer to the horizon line, because as you can see in the reference photo, it's quite subtle, and the sky kind of like the gradient is from pale blue into the gray color of the clouds. Yeah. So now I'm going to take the second brush. This is the one I painted my clouds with, and this is the one for the sky, a smaller squirrel mop brush, and I'm going in with some cobalt blue. And this mixture is going to be a bit stronger, because it will allow me to form the shapes of the clouds. You can see that now they're very soft, and I want to kind of create some shapes and make the sky color pop in contrast with these clouds. But I still want our sky to be really light, airy, and not to draw too much attention of the viewer. So yeah, I'm trying to follow the shapes of the clouds in the reference photo, but you can see I'm not doing it too blindly. I'm creating my own shapes, and I'm kind of dragging the color downwards, but I still want it lighter, so I just clean my brush a little, and I will dab it on a paper towel, and just maybe I need to clean that a bit more. Dab it on a paper towel, and now I can just blend the sky to make it really light at the bottom. Okay. I can even increase the intensity of the sky color at the very top by just dipping my brush into the same mixture, adding more paint at the top. Okay. And this will create a feeling of depth in the sky. Okay. That looks done. And now I will clean the brush, and I want to paint the land area. And this is going to be a subtle beige, warm color of the field. And I'm not gonna worry too much about the grass areas for now, because that's gonna be a bit darker. That's why I'm just gonna lay a whole wash of land color, just suggesting some guidelines to preserve the feeling of distance and perspective. So I'm going to take quinacridone gold, some sepia, and mixed together, they seem a little bit greenish to me. That's why I'm adding a touch of quinacridone rose. And I still want this mixture to be really runny. You can see it's very wet and running on my palette. And now I can test this mixture somewhere at the bottom of the page. Let's see. Actually, I might add some more red into that. Yeah, looks good. So now you can see I'm starting at the bottom. This is because that's the darkest part of the foreground. As the land comes into the distance, it becomes less contrasty. And at the bottom, I feel safe to begin my wash. So you can see I'm following these guidelines with quick brush strokes. Yeah. And now I'm just gonna clean the brush a little and blend that, because I want this texture to come through. Filling in the foreground and leaving some of those highlights. Yeah, and that's it for the first wash. Now it's best to let it sit for a few minutes.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
No, that was really great, Dani. It was really effective, and you've captured those undertones really well. I think that's the thing when people are new to art. It's getting those undertones down, isn't it? That act as the base colors that bring your eye into the scene. And obviously, we will be focusing on the other layers in the second half and adding the depth to those, and the tonal depth as well, the lights and the shades and things like that, which really make a painting pop. Right. So we have now got the opportunity, while we wait for that to dry, the opportunity of seeing some of Dani's previous artworks, which maybe she can talk us through and what inspired her. And as you look at them, if you want to make any comments, please do type that in the chat, and so that I can tell Dani what really sticks out to you and why, and things like that. By the way, Susie said very good explanations of why she's doing her process in this manner. And that's, yes, I did find that really useful, actually, Dani. You explained all those steps really well. So here. Brilliant. Okay, so
thank you, John. Thank you, Susie.
So what have you got to show us? What can we have a look at?
Yeah, I've got some artworks I'd like to show you.
Brilliant.
Let me just stand up for that.
And Laurie said, "This is so fun. You're explaining so well for beginners." So that was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, I'm
Laurie.
really glad. Yeah, so that's the first artwork. I actually took the picture during my trip to Venice in 2017, so a few years back. And I was just going through my old photos from my travels, and I found this scene, and it was actually not as cropped in. So I just found this intricate scene in a very distant image, and I thought that would be a nice painting. And I really enjoyed this one. I think it's not typical to what I usually paint. I usually am more into landscapes. And this one kind of has a special place in my heart. Yeah, so that was from Italy.
That's the thing. Did you do that? Did you do that while you were there? Like, did you sit there and paint that, or did you take a photo and then paint
No,
it?
no, the photo was actually taken in 2017, and the painting was done a couple of months back when I found this
Oh,
very
okay,
old photo from
okay.
my trip.
And it
Yes.
brought all those memories back. Then brought all those memories.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. So this one was actually done from imagination in some way, because I found a picture that I really liked on Pinterest. But I am very cautious about those things because of copyright, and I kind of stick that picture into AI, and it helped me just rearrange the composition, just to find some ideas to rearrange the composition to make it more unique and more like Dani painted it and not somebody else. Well, it wasn't a painting, the reference, but with the photos, I still have the same approach. Yeah. And, and this one is actually one of my recent paintings, and it also, I have a lot of feelings towards this painting because it feels very personal. I took the reference image during one of my trips across Armenia. Sometimes we take road trips, and this was actually taking, the photo was taken from a window of the train. So I was just
Oh, right.
passing by, and I saw this, I don't know, distressed old building that maybe it was never built, and felt something clicked in me, and it felt like, you know, sometimes we feel like we kind of have a home, but there's no roof in it. So it felt a bit personal, and I like how it turned out. So yeah, that's one of my recent favorites.
Brilliant. No, I
Yeah.
like that. And I like that
Yes.
you don't stop. You're obviously always looking for that a good shot. So there you
Oh
are on
yeah,
the train. Oh, there you go. Brilliant.
for sure. Yeah. So this one was actually also done with the help of AI. Just to be clear, I never copycat the results of the AI generation, but it sometimes helps me to kind of bring my imagination into life. So I really wanted to paint the harvesting of the crops late summer in Armenia. This is Mount Ararat. And these are just two farmers picking up, harvesting the crops. And this idea came to me, and I thought that it would be cool to paint something like that. And I asked AI to help me just compose the painting, maybe think of actually what the scene would look like in real life, because that was just an idea and I never took the actual image. So that's how I sometimes come up with painting ideas, yeah, by using AI.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute because we've had a few questions about AI,
yeah,
and we'll talk about that.
sure,
Um,
sure.
so so while I've got you, so a few questions that have come through. Fernando said, "I love your paintings, Dani. So how do you achieve the dark and deep colors in watercolor?" And I guess we can talk about that really in the second half because you're going to be adding different, you know, lights and darks, because it's the tone that really makes a painting. It's the
It
lights and
is.
darks that really brings. And there's some really great examples of amazing artists that paint things that you would never see them in those colors in life, but it's the tones, it's the lights and darks of that
It
make it
is.
an amazing painting. You can paint them in any color, but the tones really bring it to life. So we'll maybe
For
look at
sure.
that in the second half, probably. And now Akriti said, as we are waiting for the colours to settle on the current painting, wouldn't this cause the paper to dry as well?
It would. And actually, the next step would be to dry it completely. So I think I will have to use a dryer for that. So The next step is getting the paper dry
Totally dry.
and painting the next layer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now, then Laurie said, how did you add it to AI? So interesting. Well, I can probably help a little bit there. We do have a video which I did because I'm sort of into AI myself. We don't have many artists on this channel that use AI, and I'm fantastic that we found one. Dani, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I came to exactly the same conclusion, that using AI to inspire you with your real paintings was fantastic. In actual fact, the painting behind me, it has been done with AI, and I do that with every artist I host. I ask them it to generate something that. Let me see if I can show you. Here we go. There we go. And I basically said a rural countryside scene in Armenia, and that's what it came up with. So it's all to do with prompts, and I made a video going through some examples. So if you look out for that on the Shopkeep Arty channel, you'll be able to find me. I take it through step by step. I don't know what you use, Dani. I use Midjourney and Photoshop.
Same. Yeah.
There you go. So
same, exactly
it's
same.
probably the best thing. So have a look at that, Laurie. Ishal said, let me bring Dani back in. Sorry. Ishal said she always makes her tutorials in simple ways, and this can help a lot for beginners. So that's a great comment. I agree.
Thank you.
And Laurie said the house with no roof is quite moving. It evokes the feeling inside, and yeah, it's got an atmosphere, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And Victoria, I'd be interested to know how to use AI in your paintings, maybe part of a future class. So we do have one. Check out our video library, and you can find out. I think it's in our highlights series. If you struggle to find it, 'cause we've got hundreds and hundreds of tutorials there, email us and I can point you in the right direction, Victoria. Right. Okay. So now I just wanted to talk about how you can make a donation to Dani for this class. So if you enjoy it today, you can make a small donation, but it then qualifies you to attend the upcoming workshop. If we hold a longer 2-3 hour workshop with Dani, where we'll go through everything step by step, because we only have a limited time in these short classes, you can do so by making a donation. So how do you do that? Well, you visit our website, shopkeeparty.com, and then if you click on the events tab, which is our upcoming events, you can see Dani's page there. Obviously, after today, it will disappear, but it'll move onto the videos, and we do it chronologically. If you can't find it, just select Dani from the search artist tab, and then click on the class info button, and it will then take you to this page. It's exactly the same page. The event details, and on this page, it explains everything about today's class. And with some of the reference photos and some of the paintings and recommended materials. And there's a link just here saying, thank Dani here. So if you click that and you can select a number of different it's an equivalent, monetary equivalent of a cup of coffee and cake, nice bottle of wine, whatever, and add it to cart, and that'll get them paid. And then if we get enough donations, we'll contact Dani and we'll arrange a workshop, and you'll then qualify to attend that future workshop, which will appear on our events page. So hopefully that helps. Right. Now, let's go back to Dani. I've got a feeling that it probably won't be totally dry, so we may need to do a little bit of hair dry action, but Zoom will cut out the sound, so you won't have that annoying sound. Yes. So, Dani, if you want to go ahead and dry your painting, then you're more than welcome to, and I'll put the spotlight on the overhead.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I think it feels okay. Maybe just some more. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, I think that's done. Just some quick tips about drying your surface. I always check with my hand whether the paper is still cool to the touch, which means it's still wet, or if it starts to feel warm and completely dry. And also I get some warping. It happens sometimes, especially when I'm working on a smaller format. Today we're working on A4 size paper. If you're working on a larger scale, it won't bother you that much. But after the painting is finished and completely dried, you can wet the back of the paper and turn it upside down onto a clean surface and then press with some books or anything like that, something really heavy. And in 2 days, you'll have a completely flat, beautifully looking painting. So
brilliant. Well, that answers a question from Akriti, because she said, does the drying cause the paper to buckle or stop that glue action that had it sticking to the board? So yes, so that's hopefully that helps there. You've also got yourself a follow, Dani, from Kathy. Kathy Hall said, just wanted to tell Dani I've started following her because she's left-handed. Nothing to do with how good you were at art, but I'm sure Kathy likes your art as well. But she said, I'm left-handed and I'm always looking for fellow left-handed painters to learn from. So there you go. And I'm left-handed as well, Kathy.
That's
so
amazing.
There you go. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Brilliant. So, and then just one final question from Wendy said, what palette are you using, Dani? Because she obviously quite likes the look of, is that a particular brand of palette?
Yeah, actually it is. I am ordering all of my art supplies from Jackson's. So I guess whoever's in UK, it's perfect for you. So this one is by Magello Mission. And this palette, I think it's actually meant for acrylic paints, but it's still one of their foldable palettes. It stores 24 colors, I think, but I don't use these 3. So for me, it's like 21 set palette. So yeah, I love their palettes. They're great. And I have 3 of them. This is the 3rd one. Yeah. So
brilliant.
Love them.
And just to let you know about that, after, because we have an agreement with Jackson's that if you create a new account with Jackson's to order something, you get 10% off. So since this will be on Jackson's, I'll put a direct link, and if you use that direct link, you can get 10% off. So I'll put that on the class info page. So check out for that. I'll do that about an hour after this class finishes. So have a look out for that. Brilliant.
Perfect. Okay. So at this stage, sometimes things can get too quick in my motions. So before I'm coming in with the paint, I want to explain to you the process that I'm going through when I'm painting the second wash. First of all, I'm always painting from light to dark. So I need to establish the lightest areas. And I kind of want the mountains to be a little bit lighter than the foreground. And I want to come in to add some texture on that field. And I'm not going to paint in the background trees just yet. So my middle wash, my second layer, will be mountains, then the fields, the greenery of the fields, and that is how the pathway will show through. Then the fence, also negatively, the same way as the pathway, just by painting around the fence. And I will actually add some of the shadows on the houses, and I'm going to make them really light. If you look at the reference, the light strikes from about there and faces the front of the building. So that will be the lightest part, then that will be the shadow. So the shadows are going to be on the right side of each building. So basically mountains, fields, then slowly then the field, and then slowly moving on to suggest some shadows in the houses. So I'm going to start with the mountains. Just clean some space. And I will be using a swirl mop medium-sized brush for that. So I want a very transparent mixture, and I'm just re-wetting the existing mixture I had on my palette with the blues, and it's got some yellow in it. That's why it looks a bit greenish, but that's okay. I'll just keep adding some cobalt blue into that. Some quin rose, because, oh, that's a bit too much. Some cobalt blue, some quin rose. Some more blue, because it got a bit too purple. So yeah, I think that looks just about right. Very runny, maybe even some more water. Okay, and since I'm left-handed, hi Kathy, I'm gonna start at the right side of my page, and I'm gonna hold my brush vertically like that, because I like the edge of the mountains to be a little bit distressed, because if you paint just a straight line, it's gonna look a bit boring and not airy enough. So let me just show you what I mean. So I'm holding the brush and just dabbing it like that, and I'm coming in with very distressed motions to create that uneven edge. So let me just come right up, following this. So maybe we got some snow at the top of the mountains. They're in the back, so we can't see the details, but it looks a lot more interesting to our eye if the edge is like that. And then I'm picking up, that's fine. Then I'm picking up some more of that mixture that has a lot of water in it, and I'm charging in the water into the edges so that it doesn't dry on me, and I can keep finishing off with that mountain edge. So now I can come in with some neutral tint, some more cobalt, but I'm trying to be really gentle with this. So I want a very slight gradient from light to dark in those mountains, but I don't want it too strong. This looks just right. Some more cobalt. Right? Yeah, perfect. So I'm coming downwards, and you can see that I'm picking up the edges everywhere throughout the page. And as I'm coming down towards the shapes of the village, I'm slowing down, getting really precise. Okay, and maybe it's time to switch to this brush that will allow me for a lot more precision to just suggest these lines, because that is the focal point, and it's important to keep it looking like a house. Okay, so let me just suggest some shapes and come back to my really wet brush to finish that off. Okay, maybe something like that. I'm not being too careful about those shapes. I just want to suggest that there's some things going on in there. Maybe even some people, some cattle. Okay, and I'm bringing it all the way down. But I'm not touching the horizon line, because now I will be coming in with the field, and I don't want the field color to blend into the mountains. So now I want to show you a quick trick to kind of adjust the value of the mountains. I want to really emphasize the gradient that we've created. And since the wash is really wet, it's not going to show so much. So I kind of want to lighten the upper part of the mountains. So I'm going to use a spray bottle, and I'm going to hold it horizontally to be really careful. And I'm going to lightly spray. Okay. And I'm taking a clean paper towel. I'm making this kind of motion, just trying to swipe off the paint. It took a while for me to do that because I was talking. But the idea is you get a nice highlight in those areas. And if you have more time than I do, and you get to spray it while it's still wet, it will give you a really nice soft transition. But anyways, I'm really satisfied with the result.
Like a diffused effect, a bit like misty, diffused, the distance.
Maybe some clouds are coming over the mountains. It's a really nice effect. Actually, I see some lightning, so it did the job, but still.
I think it worked really well. Sarah, by the way, just said, how is your paper still smooth without using watercolor glue? And yeah, there you go. It's just the practice, I would imagine. It's just the practice.
Probably, yes. So the next step would be to paint in those fields, avoid the pathway, avoid the fence. Then we're going to move on to those lines and come up slowly towards the houses and finish the shading. I'm still avoiding the horizon line, so I'm going to leave a gap. So be careful with that if you're painting along. I'm going to wet my brush, the squirrel mud brush, a medium-sized one, and I'm going to use a mixture of quinacridone gold and some cobalt blue. That was too much. That's why I put it sideways. So I'm just gonna mix them together, and I want a more yellowish golden green. Actually, that wasn't too much. My brush is really wet, which allows me to pick up a lot of paint, a lot of, the mixture is really strong. It's because the brush is wet, and squirrel hair brushes hold a lot more water, and this allows me to create those really flowing washes. So I'm picking up this color, and I'm going to use really bold motions to paint this field. Look at me go. That was, I'm actually dabbing some moisture off. That's fine. Because I want to create some dry brush marks. Even though I'm painting with a lot of water, I still can use the bristles of the brush to actually do the job if I am using these fast, bold motions. And actually, I'm gonna take off some moisture from my brush, and I'm gonna adjust this edge because it looks a little bit too flat. So I'm gonna actually paint that field a bit more yellowish. This is where Hansa yellow comes right in, because I want to suggest those crops that we have on the reference image. And I'm still using these motions to create some gaps, to make it look naturalistic, more free, I don't know, flowing. So yeah, I'm kind of like charging in some water into the wash again. This is what I do a lot. Like I want to keep things really wet throughout the process. That's why I'm always charging some water back in or using the spray bottle to kind of like keep me going for a lot longer. Taking it almost towards the horizon line, but not all the way through. So now we have come to the hardest part of today's painting, which is painting the fence negatively. So I am painting in the guidelines. Actually, let me just expand that wash just a little. I'm going to paint in the guidelines of where the fence will go. And now I'm switching to my precision brush, a synthetic brush with a sharp point that will help me define the edges of the fence. So I'm picking up the same.
I've just had a question from Sergey. And Sergey, sorry, I didn't ask this earlier because I was trying to think of whether I should. Just wanted to know what techniques can be used to fix some possible mistakes in shapes. And it is difficult fixing things in watercolor once you've done it.
Let me answer this question in just a moment because we're short on time with this one.
Yes. Yeah.
So let me just finish this wash and then sure, of course. So to paint this fence, I'm going to just follow the lines of the fence with the tip of my brush first, and then just fill in the space in between those fence elements. Sorry for my English. Parts. Yeah, so this is all done using vertical motions. And now we need to actually kind of like fix, so that's in for the question, fix the extra straight lines that we drew to actually paint this fence. That's why I'm just taking this wash outwards, different directions, maybe sometimes even like removing some parts of the fence just for it to look natural. We don't have to see all fence lines. Yeah, and just let me, hey John, would you be able to repeat that question about fixing mistakes?
Yeah, it's what techniques can be used to fix possible mistakes in shapes. So I think the thing is once you've painted a shape in watercolor, it is. I mean, there are some things that you can do that are. So you can use a I don't know, a fairly rigid brush, and you can kind of like a bright. And you can kind of try and scrub it out if you wanted to try and take some edges away. There's also, you can use a certain sponge. I can't remember what it's called, like a magic sponge or something. I can't remember, where it kind of erases but it's very difficult to go in, wouldn't you agree, Dani, and try and repaint it after it's already dried a bit.
For sure.
You start to get blooms and things like that, which can be a little bit... I think it's a big, seeing as we're coming up to the hour, I think that's a big topic.
It is.
And maybe that's something we could do a little session on if we do this longer workshop with you, Dani, rather than to focus. Because I think take time. I think let's focus on this painting.
Maybe.
Sergey, sorry to. It is a big question. That is a big question.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is. How much time do we have left?
Well, officially we've only got 4 minutes. However,
no.
I know the time has gone really quickly. However, we can go over a little bit. So let's say 10 minutes or so. 10 minutes.
Okay. Let me just not focus on these details, but I really want to show you how I charge in those rich darks. I think that's what everyone is so interested in. So I am taking a synthetic brush and dipping it into the paint straight from the pan. And I'm using those rich colors such as sepia and neutral tint. It can be Payne's gray, doesn't matter. With some practice, you can actually mix those colors. But if you're a beginner, it's great to just pick up some paint from the pan and just charge the paint into the wash. And also, as the wash starts to dry and becomes more damp than wet, it will be a lot easier and the paint will not move as far. So the wash should be slightly wet, and you will need to take a lot of paint on your brush and just come right in. Okay, let me just really quickly show you how I approached the field. I'm not going to even change colors and show you different washes. Let's just follow these guidelines, and you can see I'm using very fast motions again. So we got a field somewhere around there, and I'm kind of using like motions like these, just suggesting this perspective and the textures in the field. Maybe some more here. And now I can charge in with a smaller brush some of those shadows. Come in with some dirt in the foreground, adjust some shapes, maybe make it like small brush marks to create that texture. Just let me quickly mix in some green. Just come back in to create that sort of feeling of depth. And in the foreground, the textures are going to be a lot more defined and distinguished. And in the background, the contrast is starting to get a bit less visible. That's why I am connecting this shape a bit more. So this wash is still wet. You can see that as I'm painting this whole wash, I'm trying to connect the shapes where I can and keep things wet while I paint. So now I want to take some kind of like a cool gray, maybe with some red. To mix my grays, I usually use a combination of primary colors, yellow, red, blue, but sometimes I use some convenience colors to speed things up, like neutral tint, sepia, etc. So I am just going to, that's a bit too dark. I will add some more water onto my palette, and I will paint. You can see I'm removing excess moisture from my brush to control the amount of water I have. Okay, so I'm doing random horizontal and vertical motions to suggest that there are different types of buildings. Okay. And now maybe it's time to pick up whatever brown we have left on our palette and just connect it to the background a bit better. And you can see we have some bleeds. That's what I was trying to avoid, but still, it's not that bad because we have some trees if we have time to paint them. So this part of the painting is damp, almost dry, and it's now the best time to drop in those really dark trees in the background. So I'm gonna come in with some ultramarine blue, add it to my yellow mixture that I have over here, maybe some red to make it like a forest green, very muted. So I'm adding both yellow and red to my mixture, and you can see it's really thick. As we move on with the painting, my palette always becomes looking like really dry, thick, dark, kind of like, I don't know, essence. So let's just test how things look. Looks good. So remember at this stage, the amount of moisture on our brush should not exceed the amount of moisture on the paper in that area. If we come in with a very wet brush in this area, it could bleed into the mounting and create a cauliflower, which most of the times we don't want. So as I was saying that, I was actually adding in some more paint into that mixture to make it a little bit richer. So you can see in some areas it has dried. Okay, looks quite well. I think we'll be able to finish that. Let me just quickly use my hairdryer. Just gonna blend that.
Okay.
Because now we're gonna go into the details, and this has to be done on dry paper. So I'll just need like a couple of minutes to dry it, and
No problem.
then just some finishing touches and we'll be done.
Great.
Okay, perfect. So for this step, I'm using these precision brushes, and I'm just mostly gonna go in with the dark colors, dark rich colors. I'm not gonna paint the whole like greenery, but I'm gonna show you the approach. So I'm still taking a very thick consistency, just picking up some browns and greens that I have on my palette. And I'm gonna use a very dry brush for this. And I'm gonna just paint in these trees, going around the shape of the house and using very different brush strokes, pointing my brush at different angles because I want to achieve a variety of brush strokes. I can also dry my brush on a paper towel and create actual dry brush marks, which look really cool at this final step. Yeah, that's just the idea of painting the trees. And I'm gonna just show you how I put my brush right into sepia, just mix it slightly with the green color and charge in some shadows for the trees. And I'm just gonna suggest some trees over here. And I'm gonna dry the brush and use a very dry brush to kind of like establish the details on the house. Maybe some action going on over here in the foreground. Just adding those details to suggest that something's going on there. There's a village, there's some people, some houses. So I'm not even thinking about what it is there going on, just adding some random marks to make it look believable. And the last step and the final step, I am going to dry off my brush and come in with the fence, just kind of line that very carefully. The left side of the fence parts, maybe coming in here with some details. So yeah, I understand that we're short on time. So I'm just showing you the approach that I take. So it's basically 3 washes, maybe even 2. The first wash, wet on wet. Then we let things dry, preferably naturally without the use of the dryer. And then, excuse me. And then we're coming in with a second wash, trying to keep things wet, connected, let this dry, and come in with some details, and you're done. Happy painting.
That's brilliant. Dani, you did that so well. No, that was really, really good. Thank you so much. It's a hard thing to do, seeing as it's your first time, and I think you failed yourself. And one of the hardest things that I think only some good artists are good at is verbalizing their actions every step of the way. And you did a really brilliant job at doing that. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. So if you've got any comments that you'd like me to read through to Dani as we bring this show to a close, please write those down for me now using the Q&A, and I'll read those to Dani in a minute. Dani, if you can also send me after this show a photo of the painting that you've done, and I'll include that at the end of the video when I edit this video. And I'll show it at the end, so we can do close-ups and things like that, which would be great. If you would like Dani to do a longer workshop and so where we can focus on a particular theme, please do make a donation. I explained earlier on how you can do that. So head over to our website and have a look. If you want to watch this video again, our patrons will be able to watch this video probably this weekend. So in a couple of days' time, once I've edited it, we will be showing this video on YouTube in a couple of weeks' time. And if you keep checking out our events page on our website, that's where we have everything coming up and our premieres and other live art classes, so you can see on there what's coming up. But Dani was absolutely brilliant. Love finding people, new talent around the world, and you have great talent, you've got great enthusiasm, and most importantly, you're really good at explaining all the steps so everybody can learn, which is lovely. Very, very, very giving with your skills. Thank you so much. So let me read a few comments to you. So Akriti said, well, this is a question. Let's skip that. Rosemary said, great demo. You're a natural teacher. Susan said, Dani is a very good tutor, explaining everything clearly as she goes along. Thank you very much. Marianne said, so helpful to watch a lefty. Yes. And Zara said, thank you. It was great. Akriti said, thanks for a brilliant session. Laurie said, I would love to attend another class, Dani. Bravo. Such a beneficial time spent. Let's do it again. Thank you, Laurie. Susie said, lovely. Deborah said, very good descriptions. Leslie said, very well explained and a great class. Very enjoyable. Carl said, I love your enthusiasm. Thank you, Carl. Victoria said, great presentation, Dani. Lee said, watercolor again. Oh boy, what a mess I made, but how much fun I had. And I know I learnt a lot about watercolors. Thank you, Lee. We've got lots of people with lots of messy living rooms all over the place. Thank you so much for joining us. That was really great. And let me remove me. And obviously, we, as you are first time to present you, Dani, it was really great. And you get a big round of applause. Thank you so much, and I'll put the camera on your painting. Thanks, Dani.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this.
Bye.